The great hull on Nexus Prime stretched far beyond what human eyes could see, its crystal walls rising into darkness above, where alien lights danced like captured stars. Ambassador Kethval of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the center podium, his body made of living crystal that caught and reflected the chamber's glow. Around him, 12 different alien species sat in their designated areas, each representing civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Kethval raised one of his 4 arms to address the assembly. His voice carried clearly through the translation devices that allowed all species to understand each other. Fellow council members, I bring good news about the human situation. After 200 years of careful monitoring, we can confirm that these creatures remain exactly where we expected them to be. Chairman Mordock, whose massive body resembled a cross between a mountain and a tree, leaned forward from his elevated platform. His species, the hegemony, had been the dominant force in galactic politics for over 3,000 years. When he spoke, others listened. Explain your findings, Ambassador Kethval. The humans continue to struggle with basic space travel. Kethval reported, consulting a datapad that glowed with alien symbols. Their fastest ships barely reach their outer planets. They have made no attempts to leave their solar system in the past 50 years. Our containment field generators remain undetected, and they show no signs of developing faster-than-light travel. A sound that might have been laughter came from the Altarian section, where Ambassador Zixmore sat with her tentacles, coiled in amusement. Such a primitive species. Do they still fight among themselves? Occasionally, Kethval replied. Though, they seem to be consolidating under a single government structure. This makes them easier to monitor and control. Far from Nexus Prime, in the darkness between Mars and Jupiter, something very different was happening. Captain Jake Morrison floated in zero gravity inside what appeared to be a large asteroid, but the rocky exterior hid humanity's greatest secret. The asteroid was hollow, and inside it, the most advanced spaceship humanity had ever built was. Nearing completion, Jake pushed himself along a guide rail, moving through corridors that hummed with energy. The ship was massive, stretching nearly 2 kilometers from nose to tail. Its hull was black as space itself, covered with materials that would make it nearly invisible to most sensors. This was the EDS Titan, and it represented 20 years of desperate work by the brightest minds humanity could gather. How are we looking today, Lisa? Jake asked as he arrived at the bridge. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Park turned from her control station, her face showing the strain of months spent perfecting the ship's systems. All primary systems are online, Captain, she reported. The new faster-than-light drive completed its final test cycle this morning. Engineer Wright says we can reach any point in the galaxy within days, not years. Jake nodded, though his expression remained serious. And the weapon systems? Chief Martinez finished the last railgun installation yesterday, Lisa said. We now have 12 main guns capable of accelerating projectiles to 30% of light speed. Diffusion torpedo. Bays are loaded and ready. The defensive systems can stop anything the aliens have thrown at other species. The bridge around them looked nothing like the crude spacecraft the aliens believed humans were capable of building. Holographic displays showed star charts extending far beyond Earth's solar system. Advanced computers processed information at speeds that would amaze the galactic powers. Most importantly, much of the technology came from careful study of alien devices that humanity had quietly acquired over the decades. Jake moved to the main command chair, where screens showed him everything happening throughout the ship. Hundreds of crew members worked at their stations, all volunteers who understood they might never see Earth again. They were humanity's best, selected not just for their skills, but for their willingness to change the galaxy forever. Any word from Earth Command? Jake asked. Lisa checked her communications panel. Admiral Blake confirms that the other ships in the fleet are nearly ready. The Liberty will launch next month, followed by Independence and Defiance. Earth's governments have approved Operation Breakout. Jake stared at the main screen, which showed a view of space that no human had ever seen before. Soon, they would be out there among the stars, face to face with the aliens who had kept humanity trapped in their own solar system for 2 centuries. The aliens thought they were dealing with primitive creatures who could barely reach their own moon. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. "Signal the crew," Jake ordered. "All departments prepare for final departure preparations. We launch in 72 hours. Back on Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council continued their routine session, unaware that everything was about to change. Ambassador Kethval was explaining the latest intelligence reports about human activities. "Our monitoring stations report increased activity around the human home world," he said. "However, this appears to be nothing more than expanded mining. Operations in their asteroid belt. They are running low on certain metals and are working harder to extract what they need." Chairman Mordock made a sound of approval. "Good. A species focused on basic survival has little time to develop dangerous ambitions. What about their military forces?" "Primitive as always," Kethval replied. "Small chemical rockets with basic nuclear weapons. Their largest ships cannot even leave their planet's gravity well with significant cargo. They pose no threat to any." Council member Ambassador Veltorin of the Proxima Federation raised a scaled appendage. "Should we consider lifting some of the restrictions? Their population is growing, and they may need access to other worlds to survive." A chorus of negative sounds came from around the chamber. The idea of allowing humans to expand beyond their solar system clearly made most council members uncomfortable. "Absolutely not," Chairman Mordock declared. "Young species must prove themselves worthy before they are granted access to the galaxy. Humans show no signs of the wisdom needed to join galactic civilization. They remain violent, divided, and technologically backward. Besides," added Ambassador Krixnar of the Trade Federation, "allowing one primitive species to expand would set a dangerous precedent. Every young civilization would expect the same treatment." What none of the council members realized was that their intelligence about humanity was decades out of date. The monitoring stations they relied on saw only what humans wanted them to see. While the aliens watched primitive rockets struggling to reach nearby planets, humanity had been building something entirely different in the hidden spaces between worlds. The EDS Titan represented the combined effort of every major human nation. Russian engineers had designed the propulsion systems. American scientists had created the weapons. Chinese manufacturers had built the hull sections. European programmers had written the computer systems. For the first time in human history, the entire species had worked together toward a single goal. That goal was simple: break free from the invisible cage the aliens had built around Earth. Jake Morrison knew the risks. If the mission failed, humanity might face retaliation that could destroy their entire civilization. But if they did nothing, humans would slowly die as their resources ran out and their population grew too large for one world to support. "Captain," came a voice from the communications station. "We're receiving a message from Admiral Blake on Earth." "Put her through," Jake ordered. The image of Admiral Sarah Blake appeared on the main screen. She was humanity's most experienced military commander, a woman who had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. "Jake, the President has given final approval for Operation Breakout," she said. "The other council members think they have. Use trapped forever. It's time to show them what humans can really do when we put our minds to it." Jake nodded. "Understood, Admiral. The Titan will depart as scheduled. The galaxy is about to get a very big surprise." 3 days later, the EDS Titan powered up its faster-than-light drive for the first time. The massive ship disappeared from human space, leaving behind only a small distortion in space-time that the alien monitoring stations would mistake for a natural phenomenon. The galaxy was about to meet humanity, and nothing would ever be the same. The Proxima monitoring station hung in space like a giant metal flower, its sensor arrays pointing in all directions to watch for unauthorized travel in this section of the galaxy. Commander Veltar had been stationed here for 15 years, watching ships come and go according to Galactic Council regulations. It was boring work, but someone had to make sure that primitive species stayed where they belonged. Veltar was reviewing the morning reports when his sensor operator suddenly made a sound of alarm. The young Altarian named Zix had only been working the sensors for 6 months, but he was good at his job. "Commander, I'm detecting something impossible," Zix reported, his tentacles dancing nervously over his control panel. "There's a massive energy signature approaching our position at faster-than-light speeds." Veltar moved quickly to look over Zix's shoulder at the sensor readings. What he saw made no sense at all. The energy pattern was unlike anything in their databases, and the size readings were completely beyond belief. "Check your equipment," Veltar ordered. "This has to be a malfunction." Zix ran through his diagnostic routines twice before shaking his head. "All systems are working perfectly, Commander. Whatever is coming toward us is real, and it's bigger than anything in our records, except for the Council's own flagship vessels." Before Veltar could respond, space itself seemed to tear open just outside their sensor range. A massive shape emerged from the faster-than-light tunnel, its hull black as the void between stars. The ship was enormous, easily 2 kilometers, long and bristling with weapons that no one on the station could identify. "By the ancient stars," Veltar whispered. "What is that thing?" On the bridge of the EDS Titan, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the alien station grow larger on their main screen. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency, following procedures they had practiced thousands of times. "Jump completed successfully, Captain," reported Navigation Officer Steve Collins. "We are exactly where we planned to be, and all systems are operating normally." Chief Engineer Danny Wright called out from his station. "All weapon systems are online and ready. The faster-than-light drive is cooling down, but will be ready for emergency jump in 10 minutes. Jake nodded, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. This was the moment humanity had been preparing for during 2 centuries of forced isolation. Everything depended on the next few minutes. "Communications, open a channel to that station." Jake ordered, "Let's introduce ourselves to our neighbors." Lieutenant Amy Foster activated the communications array, sending a signal that would reach the alien station in seconds. The response came almost immediately. Commander Veltar's image appeared on the Titan's main screen. The alien looked exactly like the intelligence reports had described, tall, thin, with skin that seemed to shift colors based on his emotions. Right now, those colors were showing confusion and growing fear. "Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted Galactic Council space without proper authorization," Veltar announced, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "Identify yourself immediately and prepare to be boarded for inspection." Jake smiled, though he knew the alien would not understand the expression. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Ship Titan. We're here to have a conversation with your government about humanity's place in the galaxy." Veltar's skin colors shifted to patterns that clearly indicated shock. "Earth Defense Ship? That's impossible. Our intelligence reports indicate that humans lack the technology to build vessels of this size. You will surrender immediately or face military action." "I'm afraid your intelligence reports are somewhat out of date," Jake replied calmly. "Perhaps we should provide you with a demonstration of current human capabilities." Jake turned to his weapons officer. "Tony, do you have a target for our demonstration?" Chief Weapons Officer Tony Martinez had already identified the perfect target. "Yes, sir. There's a large asteroid about 50 kilometers from the station. It's big enough to make an impressive display, but far enough away to avoid any danger, too." The aliens. "Excellent. Fire one round from the forward railgun. Let's show our new friends what they're dealing with." The Titan's main railgun system was a masterpiece of human engineering. Magnetic fields accelerated a tungsten projectile from rest to 30% of light speed in less than a second. The projectile itself was small, but at that velocity, it carried more energy than most nuclear weapons. The railgun fired with no visible flash or sound in the vacuum of space. The only sign of its activation was a brief energy reading on the Titan's sensors. 50 kilometers away, the asteroid simply ceased to exist. One moment it was a solid chunk of rock and metal half a kilometer across. The next moment there was nothing but expanding dust and gas. On the Proxima station, every alarm system activated at once. Zix stared at his sensors in complete disbelief. "Commander, that projectile was moving at 0.3 light speed. The energy release from impact was equivalent to a small star exploding." Veltar looked at the empty space where the asteroid had been just seconds before. In all his years of service, he had never seen a weapon demonstration of such casual, terrifying power. The implications were staggering. "Perhaps now we can discuss this matter more reasonably." Jake's voice came through the communications channel, still maintaining the same calm tone. "I believe your government has been operating under some significant misunderstandings about humanity's current technological capabilities." Veltar's skin had shifted to colors that indicated fear and respect. "Captain Morrison, I need to report this contact to my superiors immediately. Your demonstration has been noted and recorded." "Of course," Jake replied. "Please inform the Galactic Council that humanity requests a formal diplomatic meeting to discuss our status as a galactic civilization. We are prepared to wait here while you make your report." As Veltar began sending emergency signals to Nexus Prime, Jake turned to address his crew. "Well done, everyone. Phase 1 is complete. Now we wait to see how the Council responds to learning that humans are no longer the primitive species they remember." Lieutenant Commander Lisa Park looked up from her tactical display. "Captain, I'm detecting 3 patrol ships moving toward our position from the outer system. They appear to be standard Council vessels, probably coming to investigate the energy readings from our demonstration." "Let them come," Jake said. "The more witnesses we have to humanity's capabilities, the better. The Council needs to understand that we are not the same species they locked away 2 centuries ago." The patrol ships arrived within an hour, taking defensive positions around the Titan, but maintaining a respectful distance. Their commanders had clearly seen the sensor readings from the railgun demonstration and were not eager to test human weapons personally. Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, the emergency message from Commander Veltar was causing chaos in the council chambers. Ambassador Kethval read the report 3 times before accepting that it was not some kind of elaborate joke. "This cannot be accurate," he said to his aide. "Our latest intelligence assessment shows that humans are barely capable of interplanetary travel within their own system." His aide, a younger Zephyrian named Morval, looked nervous as he replied, "Sir, I checked the dates on our intelligence reports. The most recent comprehensive assessment of human capabilities is 47 years old. It was classified as low priority because they showed no signs of advanced development." Kethval felt something that his species rarely experienced: genuine fear. If humans had somehow developed advanced military technology without the Council's knowledge, it represented a massive intelligence failure with potentially catastrophic consequences. "Contact the Hegemony Fleet immediately," Kethval ordered. "Request immediate deployment of a battle group to the Proxima system, and summon an emergency session of the full Council." Back at the Proxima station, Captain Jake Morrison was having a pleasant conversation with Commander Veltar, who had gradually become more comfortable talking with the human captain. The alien officer was clearly intelligent and professional, and Jake found himself hoping that not all first contacts would require weapons demonstrations. Commander Veltar, may I ask how long the Galactic Council has been monitoring human activities? Jake asked. Approximately 200 standard years, Veltar replied. Your species was classified as a developing civilization and placed under protective observation to prevent interference with your natural evolution. Jake nodded thoughtfully. I see. And during those 200 years, how often did Council representatives visit Earth to assess our progress? Veltar's skin colors shifted to patterns that seemed to indicate embarrassment. To my knowledge, there have been no direct visits. All monitoring has been conducted through automated systems and long-range sensors. That explains a great deal, Jake said. Commander, over the past 2 centuries, humanity has had nothing to do but study the galaxy around us and prepare for the day when we would join galactic civilization. We've learned a great deal about your technology, your politics, and your assumptions about primitive species. Jake paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. The ship you see before you is not a lucky accident or a single breakthrough. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of receiving Commander Veltar's report. The great chamber on Nexus Prime buzzed with tension as representatives from 12 major civilizations gathered to discuss what many were calling the most serious security threat in over 1,000 years. Chairman Mordake's massive form dominated the central platform as he addressed the assembly. His voice carried the weight of 3 millennia of hegemony leadership. Fellow council members, we face a situation that our intelligence services failed to predict. The human species has somehow developed advanced military technology and used it to threaten one of our monitoring stations. Ambassador Kethval stood at his designated position, his crystalline body reflecting the chamber's lights in patterns that showed his distress. Chairman, I have reviewed all available intelligence on human development over the past 2 centuries. There is no indication in our records that they possess the capability to build vessels of this magnitude. Then our intelligence was clearly inadequate, rumbled Ambassador Nexmore of the Industrial Guild. The question now is what we do about this unexpected development. Admiral Sarah Blake stood on the observation deck of the Edsea Titan as it held position in the Proxima system. As humanity's most experienced fleet commander, she had been specially transported to the ship to oversee this critical first contact. Her presence aboard the Titan sent a clear message about how seriously Earth's governments were taking this mission. Captain Morrison, we're detecting multiple faster-than-light signatures approaching our position, reported sensor operator Ben Taylor. 12 heavy cruisers and what appears to be a battleship are dropping out of hyperspace in standard formation. Jake nodded from his command chair. Expected response, Admiral. They want to make a show of force before they're willing to negotiate. The Council fleet arranged itself in a classic intimidation pattern around the human vessel. At its center was the hegemony battleship Inevitable Victory, commanded by Fleet Admiral Krexener. The alien commander had over 2 centuries of experience dealing with upstart species who occasionally developed delusions of military capability. Human vessel, Krexener's voice boomed across all communication frequencies. You are surrounded and outgunned by the finest warships in the galaxy. Surrender immediately and submit to Council authority, or face the consequences of your continued defiance. Admiral Blake exchanged a meaningful look with Captain Morrison. Both had served long enough in Earth's defense forces to recognize an empty threat when they heard one. Admiral Krexener, Jake responded with his characteristic calm. Before we proceed with any hostile actions, perhaps you would like to review the sensor data from our earlier demonstration. Your ships should have clear recordings of what happened to the asteroid. Krexner's confidence wavered slightly as his tactical officer whispered urgent calculations in his ear. The energy readings from the human weapon were indeed troubling. But surely no single ship could stand against 12 of the Council's most advanced vessels. One fortunate shot does not make you invincible, human. You face the combined might of civilizations that have ruled this galaxy for thousands of years. Surrender now, and your people will be treated with appropriate mercy. Jake turned to Chief Weapons Officer Tony Martinez, who was monitoring all 12 Council ships from his tactical station. Tony, do you have firing solutions on all enemy vessels? Yes, sir, Captain. All targets are locked and tracked. Shall I demonstrate why they call this ship a Dreadnought? Jake shook his head slightly. Not yet, Tony. Let's give Admiral Krexner one more opportunity to reconsider his approach to this situation. Jake activated the communication system again. Admiral Krexner, I want to share something with you that your intelligence services apparently missed during their monitoring of human development. For the past 2 centuries, while you've been watching our primitive spacecraft and congratulating yourselves on successfully containing a backward species, humanity has been preparing for this exact moment. Jake paused, allowing his words to carry across the vast distances to each council ship. Every piece of technology you've used to intimidate other species, we've studied and analyzed. Every weapon system you've deployed in your various conflicts, we've examined and improved upon. Every tactical doctrine you've developed, we've learned and adapted to our own purposes. The bridge of the Titan hummed with quiet activity as crew members monitored the Council fleet's reactions. Sensor readings showed increased energy signatures from several enemy vessels as their commanders prepared for possible combat. The ship you're facing isn't just a Dreadnought, Admiral, Jake continued. It's a Dreadnought built by a species that has spent 200 years with nothing to do but figure out how to break your blockade and join the galactic community as equals rather than subjects. On Nexus Prime, the Council members watched the standoff through long-range sensors and communication links. The tension in the chamber was so thick it could be felt by species with entirely different sensory systems. Ambassador Kethfall turned to his aide with growing alarm. Contact our intelligence division immediately. I want a complete review of all human monitoring data going back 50 years. How did we miss developments of this magnitude? His aide's response would haunt the Zephyrian ambassador for the rest of his career. Sir, our most recent detailed intelligence report on human technological capabilities is over 40 years old. It was classified as minimal priority due to their apparent lack of advanced development. Kethfall felt his crystalline structure actually crack slightly from the stress. 40 years. For 40 years, the Council had been operating under completely outdated information about a species that was apparently developing advanced military technology in secret. Furthermore, his aide continued nervously, the automated monitoring systems were programmed to watch for specific types of technological development. If the humans developed capabilities using methods we didn't anticipate, the systems might not have detected them. Back in the Proxima system, Admiral Krexner was beginning to realize that this situation was far more serious than he had initially believed. His tactical officers were reporting energy readings from the human ship that exceeded anything in their databases. Human Captain, Krexner said, his voice noticeably less confident than before, your vessel appears to possess advanced capabilities. However, you still face overwhelming numerical superiority. What are your intentions? Jake's response was delivered with the same calm certainty that had characterized every human communication since their arrival. Our intentions are simple, Admiral. Humanity requires access to the galaxy beyond our solar system. Our population is growing, our resources are limited, and we need room to expand and thrive. The blockade that has kept us isolated for 2 centuries ends today. And if the Council refuses to lift this blockade? Jake smiled, though the expression was lost on the alien commanders. Admiral, humanity has had 200 years to prepare for the possibility that diplomacy might fail. We would prefer to resolve this peacefully, but we are prepared for any response the Council might choose. Admiral Blake stepped forward to add her voice to the conversation. Admiral Krexner, I am Admiral Sarah Blake of the Earth Defense Forces. I want you to understand something very important about human nature. When we are trapped and threatened, we don't surrender. We adapt, we prepare, and we fight back. Her words carried clearly to every Council ship in the system. The ship you see before you is not our only advanced vessel. It is simply the first of many. While you have been assuming that humans remained primitive and divided, we have been working together as a unified species for the first time in our history. The implications of Admiral Blake's words were not lost on the Council commanders. If humans had built one ship of this capability, they had almost certainly built others. On the bridge of the inevitable victory, Admiral Krexner consulted with his senior officers. The tactical assessment was disturbing. The human vessel showed energy signatures that suggested weapons and defensive systems beyond current Council technology. More troubling, the humans were displaying a level of confidence that suggested they had additional resources not visible in the current engagement. Admiral, his weapons officer reported quietly, our computer analysis of the asteroid destruction suggests that the human railgun technology is significantly more advanced than anything in our arsenal. A direct engagement would be extremely risky. Krexnor had spent over 2 centuries building his reputation on successful intimidation of lesser species. But something about this situation felt fundamentally different. These humans weren't backing down in the face of overwhelming numerical superiority, which suggested they had capabilities that weren't immediately apparent. Human vessels, Krexner announced. The Council will require time to evaluate this situation. We propose a temporary ceasefire while diplomatic channels are established. Jake nodded approvingly. An excellent suggestion, Admiral. The ED's Titan will remain in this position while you contact your superiors. We are prepared to wait as long as necessary for the Council to adjust to the new reality of human capabilities. Admiral Krexner had faced rebellious species before during his long career commanding Council fleets. Young civilizations occasionally developed advanced weapons and attempted to challenge the established galactic order. The solution was always the same: a swift demonstration of overwhelming Council firepower, followed by renewed cooperation and submission. Standing on the bridge of his flagship Inevitable Victory, Krexner studied the massive human vessel through his sensors. The ship was indeed larger than anything except the Council's own super dreadnoughts, and the energy readings were troubling. However, one ship could not stand against 12 of the finest warships in the galaxy. Human vessel, Krexner announced across all communication frequencies. You have exactly 30 seconds to surrender unconditionally and submit to Council authority. This is your final warning before we take military action. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the EDS Titan, surrounded by displays showing the positions of all 12 Council ships. His crew worked with calm efficiency at their stations, following procedures they had practiced thousands of times during their preparation for this moment. Jake turned to Admiral Sarah Blake, who stood beside his chair reviewing tactical data. She nodded grimly, confirming what they both already knew. The Council was not willing to negotiate from a position of equality. Admiral, it appears they need a more comprehensive demonstration of human capabilities, Jake said quietly. Tony, are all weapons systems ready? Chief Weapons Officer Tony Martinez had been waiting for this moment throughout his entire military career. Every simulation, every training exercise, every tactical study had led to this confrontation with the forces that had kept humanity trapped in their solar system for 2 centuries. All systems armed and ready, Captain, Tony reported. Shall I proceed with Demonstration Protocol 7? Execute immediately. The EDS Titan had been designed around a single guiding principle. If humanity was going to challenge the galactic blockade, they needed to do so with such overwhelming force that retaliation against Earth would be unthinkable. The ship's weapons. Systems represented the combined knowledge and desperate innovation of an entire species. The first rail. Gun salvo targeted the lead Council cruiser's weapon systems with surgical precision. 12 tungsten projectiles moving at 30% of light speed struck shield generators and primary weapons arrays in a carefully planned sequence. The goal was not destruction, but demonstration, showing that human weapons could disable any Council vessel at will. Aboard the Council cruiser's stellar dominance, Captain Vel Crix watched in stunned horror as his ship's primary systems failed one after another. Impossible, he whispered. No single vessel possesses that kind of precision. Firepower. His tactical officer's voice shook as he reported the damage. Captain, we've lost main weapons, secondary batteries, and primary shields. The human projectiles were moving at relativistic speeds with targeting accuracy beyond our computer models. The second railgun salvo targeted 2 more Council vessels in the space of heartbeats. Precisely aimed kinetic projectiles disabled weapons and propulsion systems, while leaving life support and crew quarters untouched. The message was clear. Humans could destroy these ships completely if they chose to do so, Admiral Krexner stared at his tactical displays in disbelief as 3 of his finest vessels went dark. How is this possible? Our intelligence indicated that humans lack advanced military technology. His weapons officer looked up from his console with an expression of barely controlled panic. Admiral, the human ship is using weapon systems we've never encountered. Kinetic projectiles at relativistic speeds, backed by targeting computers that seem to predict our evasive maneuvers before we make them. But the railguns were only the beginning of humanity's demonstration. The Titan's fusion torpedo launchers activated next, sending a spread of 6 guided warheads toward the remaining Council ships. These weren't the crude nuclear devices the galaxy expected from primitive humans. They were precision fusion weapons with variable yields and guidance systems that could adjust their flight paths in real time. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Parp monitored the engagement from her tactical station, coordinating the attack with mechanical precision. Torpedoes away, Captain. All warheads are targeting shield generators and propulsion systems only. No lethal strikes authorized. The fusion torpedoes detonated in carefully controlled bursts around the Council ships. Their electromagnetic pulses overloaded shield systems and disabled engine components while leaving crew areas intact. Within minutes, 9 of the 12 Council vessels were drifting helplessly in space, their crews unharmed, but their ships completely neutralized. Admiral Krexner, Jake's voice came through the communication channels with the same calm tone he had maintained throughout the entire encounter. I trust you are beginning to understand the nature of your miscalculation regarding human capabilities. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council watched the engagement through long-range sensors and direct communication links with the disabled ships. The silence in the Great Chamber was absolute as 12 of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy processed what they were seeing. A single human vessel had disabled 3/4 of a Council battle group in under 5 minutes using weapons and tactics that none of them had ever encountered. The implications were staggering. Chairman Mordake's voice carried a note of respect that had been completely absent from previous communications. Patch me through to the human ship immediately. Jake's image appeared on the main screen of the Council chamber. Behind him, the bridge of the Titan hummed with quiet activity as his crew continued monitoring the situation. Chairman Mordock, Jake said with a slight nod of acknowledgement, I believe we now have your complete attention. Captain Morrison, You have demonstrated military capabilities that our intelligence services completely failed to detect. What exactly does humanity want from the Galactic Council? Jake's response was direct and uncompromising. Our requirements are simple, Chairman. For 2 centuries, the Council has maintained a blockade that prevented humanity from expanding beyond our home solar system. Our resources are becoming limited, our population continues to grow, and we require access to uninhabited worlds where we can establish colonies. Jake paused, letting his words carry across the vast distances to the council chamber on Nexus Prime. We are not seeking to conquer existing civilizations or disrupt established trade routes. We want recognition as equals in the galactic community and the right to expand into unoccupied systems. The blockade ends today, regardless of whether the Council chooses to cooperate or oppose us. Chairman Mordock studied the human captain's expression through the communication link. What he saw sent a chill through his ancient consciousness. This was not the desperate bluffing of a cornered species facing superior forces. This was the calm certainty of a civilization that had spent centuries preparing for this exact conversation. What guarantee can you provide that humanity will not use these advanced capabilities against established council members? Jake's smile was neither threatening nor reassuring. It was simply the expression of someone stating an obvious fact. The same guarantee you provided when you imposed the blockade 200 years ago, Chairman. The strong do what they will, and the weak endure what they must. The significant difference is that humanity is no longer weak. The words hit the council chamber like a physical blow. For millennia, the established galactic powers had used exactly that philosophy to justify their control over younger species. Now a primitive civilization was throwing their own reasoning back at them. Ambassador, Kethval's crystalline structure actually changed color as stress patterns spread through his body. Captain Morrison, surely you understand that unrestricted expansion by a militaristic species could destabilize the entire galactic order. Militaristic? Jake repeated, his tone remaining perfectly calm. Ambassador, humanity has not attacked a single council vessel today. We have disabled your weapons and engines, while carefully avoiding any casualties. If we were truly militaristic, this conversation would be taking place over the wreckage of your fleet. Admiral Blake stepped forward to address the council directly. Members of the Galactic Council, I want you to understand something crucial about human psychology. We do not start fights, but we always finish them. For 2 centuries, you have kept us isolated and contained. We used that time to study, to learn, and to prepare. Her voice carried clearly across the communication link to Nexus Prime. The ship you see before you represents the combined effort of our entire species, working together toward a single goal. Every human nation contributed their best scientists, engineers, and military personnel to this project. We have never been more united than we are at this moment. The tactical implications of Admiral Blake's words were not lost on the council members. If humans had achieved species-wide cooperation for the first time in their history, their potential capabilities were far greater than any single ship might suggest. Admiral Krexner's voice came through from his disabled flagship. Human commanders, my tactical analysis suggests that your vessel possesses capabilities significantly beyond current council technology. However, you cannot maintain this advantage indefinitely. 3 months had passed since what galactic historians were already calling the Proxima Incident. The Great Chamber on Nexus Prime hosted its first official session with humanity's newly appointed ambassador, Rachel Taylor, a former Earth diplomat who had spent decades studying alien cultures in preparation for this historic moment. The chamber itself had been modified to accommodate human physiology. A specially designed podium stood where Rachel could address the assembly of 12 major galactic civilizations, each now forced to acknowledge humanity as an equal participant in galactic politics. Chairman Mordock called the session to order, with obvious reluctance. The past months had seen dramatic shifts in galactic power structures as various species reassessed their relationships with both the Council and the newcomer human civilization. A council recognizes Ambassador Rachel Taylor of the human government, Mordok announced, his massive form conveying resignation more than the authority that had once dominated these chambers. Rachel stood at her podium, wearing a simple blue diplomatic uniform that represented Earth's united governments. Behind her, holographic displays showed the transformed strategic situation. Human colonies now operated in 7 systems beyond Earth, with more ships arriving daily to establish permanent settlements. "Thank you, Chairman Mordok," Rachel began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's advanced translation systems. "I bring greetings from Earth and confirmation that the human government remains committed to peaceful coexistence with all established galactic civilizations." The Zephyrian ambassador, Kethval, shifted uncomfortably in his crystalline seat. Intelligence reports over the past months had painted an increasingly disturbing picture of human capabilities. The ED's Titan and her sister ships were not unique vessels, but merely the first wave of an expanding human fleet. "Ambassador Taylor," Kethval interjected, his voice carrying undertones of nervousness, "the Council requires concrete assurance that humanity's rapid expansion will respect existing territorial boundaries and establish trade agreements." Rachel smiled, an expression that had become somewhat infamous among Council members since their first encounter with Captain Morrison and his demonstration of human military capabilities. "Of course, Ambassador Kethval. Humanity has absolutely no desire to disrupt existing arrangements between established civilizations. However, we do require continued access to uninhabited systems suitable for colonization and the establishment of fair trade relationships on mutually beneficial terms." The careful diplomatic language masked a fundamental shift that everyone in the chamber understood perfectly. Over the past months, several smaller species had quietly approached human representatives seeking protection from the Council's more aggressive members. The Altarians, long oppressed by hegemony territorial expansion, had been the first to formally request human intervention in their boundary disputes. Captain Jake Morrison now commanded a fleet of 12 Dreadnought-class vessels, each one representing the combined technological achievement of humanity's greatest minds. The AD's Titan remained his flagship, but ships named Liberty, Independence, Defiance, Resolute, Intrepid, Determination, Courage, Valor, Honor, Justice, and Freedom had joined the growing human presence throughout the galaxy. Admiral Sarah Blake had established humanity's first major forward operating base in the Kepler system, where human engineers worked alongside refugee scientists from dozens of species to develop new technologies. The base served multiple strategic purposes: a staging area for continued human expansion, a research facility for technological advancement, and a powerful symbol of humanity's commitment to protecting those who sought their assistance. The human expansion program has proceeded remarkably smoothly, Admiral Blake reported during her regular briefing to Earth Command through faster-than-light communications. "We've encountered minimal organized resistance and 17 minor species have requested formal protection agreements." General Paul Stevens, Earth's Supreme Military Commander, reviewed the strategic assessments with deep satisfaction. "What about the Council's response, Admiral?" "Mixed reactions, sir," Blake replied. "The older, more established powers are clearly uncomfortable with our presence, but they lack the military capability to challenge us directly. The younger species see us as a long-awaited counterbalance to Council authority. We're successfully walking the line between expansion and unnecessary provocation." Back on Nexus Prime, Ambassador Rachel was addressing specific Council concerns with the practiced skill of a diplomat who had spent years preparing for these exact conversations. Humanity fully understands the delicate nature of galactic politics. She said, "We have no intention of disrupting the stability that the Council has successfully maintained for thousands of years. However, we also cannot accept artificial limitations on our people's fundamental right to exist and expand throughout the galaxy." Chairman Morgok leaned forward in his massive chair, his ancient eyes focusing on the human ambassador. And if the Council were to attempt to reinstate the previous restrictions on human expansion, the chamber fell completely silent. Every representative present understood that this question addressed the core issue that would determine the future of galactic civilization. Rachel's response was delivered with the same calm certainty that had characterized humanity's emergence. Onto the galactic stage. Mr. Chairman, humanity spent 2 centuries in isolation, preparing for the possibility that diplomacy might ultimately fail. We sincerely hope that such preparations will prove unnecessary, but we remain fully prepared for any eventuality the Council might choose to pursue. The implications were crystal clear to everyone in the chamber. Humanity had not revealed the full extent of their capabilities during the Proxima demonstration. The human fleet represented only the visible portion of military and technological capabilities that remained largely hidden from galactic scrutiny. Ambassador Veltorine of the Proxima Federation raised a scaled appendage. Ambassador Taylor, several council members have expressed concern about humanity's rapid technological advancement. How did your species achieve such capabilities without detection by our monitoring systems? Rachel's answer provided insight into human nature that would influence galactic politics for generations to come. Ambassador Veltorin, isolation taught humanity several important lessons. We learned to be self-reliant, to work together despite our differences, and to prepare thoroughly for challenges we knew we would eventually face. While your monitoring systems watched our primitive spacecraft, we were studying every piece of alien technology we could acquire through trade or salvage. She paused, allowing her words to sink in throughout the chamber. More importantly, we learned that survival requires constant adaptation and improvement. Every human generation grew up knowing that someday we would need to prove ourselves worthy of joining galactic civilization as equals rather than subjects. The session continued for several hours as Rachel addressed concerns about human expansion, technological development, and future intentions. By the end, a new understanding had settled over the assembled representatives. As the session concluded and representatives dispersed to their respective ships and quarters, the galaxy began adapting to its transformed political landscape. The age of unchallenged council authority had definitively ended. Humanity had not simply joined the galactic community, but had fundamentally altered its power structures and relationships. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, stood on the bridge of the EDS Titan as it patrolled the expanding borders of human space. Through the main view screen, he could see stars that no human had visited just months ago, now home to thriving colonies and research stations. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders that humanity was only beginning to discover. Ancient civilizations possessed knowledge and technology that could benefit all species if shared cooperatively. Young civilizations struggled with challenges that human experience might help them overcome. But most importantly, humanity now faced that infinite future as equals rather than prisoners. The Galactic Council had learned not just the meaning of fear, but the far more important meaning of respect. The stars themselves seemed brighter now that humanity was free to reach them, and the future held possibilities that even human imagination had not fully grasped. The Second Galactic Age had begun, and humanity would help write its history as partners rather than observers. In the end, that was all they had ever wanted, the chance to prove that they belonged among the stars as much as any other species that called the galaxy home.